She walked into the community center feeling invisible, and within an hour, 12 strangers made her feel like the most important person in the room. That feeling has a name: love bombing, and it is almost always the first move a cult leader makes. Attention, praise, physical warmth, constant eye contact, an overwhelming flood of validation aimed at someone who was quietly starving for it. The target rarely notices the flood. They only notice that for the first time in years, someone is truly listening. This is not friendship forming naturally. It is a calculated deposit made so that a much larger withdrawal can happen later. The leader at the front of the room doesn't shout. He speaks softly, almost gently, forcing the room to lean in to hear him. Volume is for people who need to be heard. Certainty is for people who need to be believed. His sentences rarely end in question marks. They end in declarations, delivered with the total confidence of someone who has never once doubted himself in public. That certainty becomes contagious. In a room full of uncertain people, the single certain voice always sounds like wisdom, even when it says nothing verifiable at all. Within the first few weeks, something else begins to happen. Family dinners get harder to attend. Old friends start to seem negative or not on the same path. The group gently suggests that outsiders don't understand and might try to pull her back into her old, smaller life. This is isolation, and it rarely looks like a wall going up. It looks like a slow fog rolling in. A few skipped calls, a few canceled visits, a quietly growing distance that feels like her own choice every step of the way. By the time the outside world starts to worry, she already has fewer people to call. The group starts asking for small things first. Attend one more meeting, donate a little more time, share a personal secret in front of the circle. Each request is barely bigger than the last, and each yes makes the next yes easier to give. Psychologists call this the foot in the door technique, and it works because humans hate feeling inconsistent with their own past choices. Having already said yes 10 times, saying no on the 11th feels like admitting the first 10 were mistakes. Few people are willing to make that admission, so they simply keep saying yes. Then comes the language. New words for old ideas: the family, the mission, the awakening, a private vocabulary that only insiders fully understand. Language like this does two things at once. It builds intimacy, because shared words create shared identity, and it builds distance, because outsiders literally can't follow the conversation anymore. The world quietly splits into two categories: those who understand and those who don't. And no one wants to be caught on the wrong side of that line. The leader begins to frame the world as under threat. Enemies are named: the government, the media, disbelieving relatives, a corrupt outside society that isn't ready for the truth the group holds. An us versus them narrative does something particularly powerful to the human brain. It converts belonging into survival. Leaving doesn't just mean losing friends anymore. It means abandoning your side in a war you've been told is real. Fear, once introduced this carefully, rarely needs to be repeated loudly. A single reminder is usually enough. Every so often, the leader reveals something only for the inner circle: a secret teaching, a hidden truth, a piece of knowledge withheld from everyone else. This creates a hierarchy of access, and humans are remarkably motivated by hierarchy. Being led a little further inside feels like being chosen, and being chosen is one of the most addictive feelings a person can experience. The information itself is often unremarkable. What matters is the feeling of exclusivity wrapped around it. By now, she has given money, time, relationships, and identity to something that promised her belonging. This is where the sunk cost fallacy becomes the group's strongest weapon. Having already sacrificed so much, walking away doesn't feel like relief. It feels like admitting that everything she gave up was for nothing. The bigger the investment, the harder it becomes to question it, which is precisely why leaders keep asking for more before doubt has a chance to take root. Doubt, when it does appear, is treated as a symptom rather than a signal. Members are taught that hesitation means their old damaged self is resurfacing, that discomfort is proof the process is working, that questioning the leader is really just fear of transformation. This reframing is devastatingly effective because it turns the internal alarm bell, the very thing designed to protect a person, into evidence that something is wrong with them, not with the group. Some who leave describe the moment differently than expected. It isn't a dramatic escape. It's a quiet, disorienting fog lifting, followed by the slow, painful work of remembering who they were before the flood of attention, the private language, the shared enemies, and the promise of being chosen. What they find underneath, almost always, is an ordinary person who was simply lonely enough, at exactly the wrong moment, to be found by someone who knew precisely what loneliness looks like and precisely how to use it. None of these techniques require a robe, a compound, or a doomsday prophecy. Love bombing, isolation, foot-in-the-door commitment, in-group language, manufactured enemies, tiered secrets, sunk cost, every one of them shows up in far smaller, far more ordinary places: a demanding workplace, a controlling relationship, an online community that slowly narrows a person's world. Cult leaders didn't invent human psychology. They simply learned to read it more precisely than anyone else in the room, and to use what they found there before the room ever noticed what was happening to it. The most dangerous manipulators were never the ones who looked dangerous. They were the ones who made you feel finally, completely seen, and then quietly decided what you were allowed to see in return. Awareness doesn't make you immune to connection. It just means the next time someone's kindness arrives a little too fast, a little too total, a little too convenient, you'll recognize it not as love, but as a technique. And recognizing the technique is the one thing every version of this story depends on you never doing. If this episode helped you see these patterns more clearly, let us know in the comments. And subscribe for more deep dives into the dark psychology hiding in plain sight.